Funding for Stress-Free Cooking is brought to you by Cutco. Cutco has been making high-quality products in Olean, New York since 1949. Cutco's straight-edge blades are durable, flexible, and hold a razor-sharp edge. And by Melissa's. Established in 1984, Melissa's World Variety Produce is currently the largest distributor of specialty produce in the United States. You could depend on Melissa's for delivering great quality products in fruits and vegetables.
Hi, I'm Barbara Seelig-Brown. Welcome to Stress-Free Cooking. What I want you to do is come home from work, put on your bunny slippers, pour a glass of wine, and cook with me. Hi, I'm Barbara Seelig-Brown. Welcome to Stress-Free Cooking. Today we're going to put on our bunny slippers, pour a little wine, and we're going to get some tips and tricks. So no recipes, but lots of great information that's going to help make your cooking stress-free. So what I'm going to do is start out with just walking through all of these gadgets that I have on the kitchen counter. So I'm going to start out first by talking about recipes, because we all love to find a good recipe, but a good recipe is just a guideline. What you want to do is read the recipe thoroughly, make sure that you understand all of the terms, all of the ingredients, and all of the techniques that are in the recipe. And if you have any questions, of course, today we can look them up on the internet. It makes it very easy. But make sure you've read the whole recipe first. The next thing that we do is what we call mise en place. What that means is we prepare everything that's going into the recipe. All of the ingredients get washed, chopped, measured, and a good thing to have in your kitchen are these nice little bowls for small quantities, for salt, for spices, so you can have several sizes. And I like to have them in various sizes. I like glass bowls because it's easy to see what's in them. Stainless steel or plastic works fine if that's what you like to have in your kitchen. But it's a great idea to make sure that you have lots of little bowls so that you can measure everything. So you want to have everything washed, dried, measured, chopped before you turn on the oven, before you turn on the mixer, before you turn on the food processor. It also serves as sort of a check for you, because if you are making a cake and you can't remember if you've put the salt in or the sugar in, and you look at your workspace and you see that the bowl of sugar is still there, then you know that you did not put that in. So let's talk a little bit about knife skills. A great place to start in the kitchen. A sharp knife is your best friend. So make sure you keep your knives sharp. You want to not wash your knives by hand. The dishwasher really can damage the blade. So what you're going to do is try to use the largest knife that you can handle. So I have a chef's knife here that might look large, but really this knife does the work for me. So what I do is I hold hands with the knife as if I was grabbing a tennis racket, and I hold very close to the blade. If I hold my knife too far back, it's going to rock on my cutting board. So by holding it closer to the blade, it gives me a lot more stability. And I'll show you what I mean. I have some parsley here, which I'm going to chop. And when you're chopping herbs, you want to make sure that they're nice and dry. You can use the stems on your parsley, but for this demonstration, I'm just going to take some leaves. So I hold my knife close to the blade, one finger on this side, my thumb on the other side, and then just start rocking that knife back and forth. It should remind you of the locomotion on the train. It goes forward, it lifts up, and it comes back. So nice and easy. And then you keep pushing your food into the knife, and before you know it, you have enough chopped that you can just start going over it like so. Get a nice uniform size. So as I mentioned, you want your herbs nice and dry. So what you can use, what you should have in your kitchen, is a salad spinner. Salad spinner is great for greens, for herbs, some of the fruits that you want to wash. So you can rinse the greens in here, put them in the salad spinner, and when it spins, it dries everything. Pour the water out, and the drier the greens or the herbs are when you put them away, the longer they're gonna last in your refrigerator. And you can also use this as a storage container once you've poured away the water. Let's stop that. All right, the next thing that I want to go over is chopping garlic. We use a lot of garlic in our kitchens. So we have a head of garlic. So I'm going to take a couple of cloves of garlic and lay them down on my cutting board. So you take your chef's knife and you place it on top of the clove of garlic, and then with the other hand, just give it a good whack. What happens is the skin will just come right off. Now you can buy peeled garlic, which is fine if you really need to do that, but you want to remember that when you buy anything pre-peeled, sliced, or chopped, you're going to lose a little bit of freshness, a little flavor, and in some cases, a little nutritional value. So let's try that one more time. And these are nice big cloves of garlic, so it's a great demonstration tool. So then I'm just going to take my knife and just chop this as I chopped the parsley. Remember to keep your fingers folded down. If you're cooking for somebody who really doesn't like to see garlic in their food, I have heard of people like that, what you do is you take a little bit of salt and you put it on top of the garlic, and we can make a little bit of a paste. So you take the chef's knife and you crush the garlic and the salt together, and you'll get a nice paste, and you won't see as many little pieces of garlic in the dish that you're cooking. And then what you want to remember though is you're not going to use quite as much salt in the dish because you've already put some in here. And speaking of salt, what I do is I keep my salt in a little dish on the side of my stove on the kitchen counter, and when I need to salt something, I just take a pinch. And a pinch of salt is about 1/8 of a teaspoon. So it's an easy way to salt your dishes without shaking a salt shaker over a steaming pot. And you can keep track of the measurement very simply without a measuring spoon, because you can assume a pinch is about 1/8 of a teaspoon of salt. So one really great tip that I can give you is when you're using a cutting board and you don't want it to slide on your kitchen cabinet, you take a damp paper towel and you put it down before the cutting board, and this will keep the cutting board from sliding. A lot of people have granite countertops, they're a little bit slick, so this will keep things from sliding. The next thing that I want to talk about is cutting an onion. So when we're cutting something round, the best thing that you can do is to cut it and make it flat. So we'll cut this big onion in half. Now I have 2 halves, nice flat surface, and I'm going to cut off the stem end, which is the top of the onion, but I'm going to keep the root end intact. This will allow me to peel the onion. So just peel away a layer. Try not to peel away too much, but definitely, get that first layer. Then with your chef's knife, you make some horizontal cuts. And you can vary the size of your dice or your mince by doing this. So a couple of horizontal cuts, and then a couple of vertical cuts. And then you just take your chef's knife and you just run it across the onion like so. And if you feel that you need to even up your dice, then you just take your chef's knife and just rock back and forth and remove the stem. And that's all there is to it. Mangoes are a great addition to your grocery list. They give lots of fresh flavors to so many dishes. I like to make black bean and mango salsa. It's healthy, it's pretty, and it's just really a fun thing to do. But mango is also great if you cut it up and put it in a green salad. So when you buy your mango, it has somewhat of a flat side to it if you hold it and you take a look at it. So what you're going to do is put it on your cutting board, and you're going to find where the pit is. It has a flat pit in the center. So you take your knife and you cut about 1/3 of the mango away. So you're going to guess, and you may have to back the knife off a little bit, but that's okay. So you cut about 1/3 off, turn it around, cut the other side about 1/3. And then what I do is I take a paring knife and I score this. And you want to make sure that you don't go all the way through the skin, so you just do it gingerly. and score it, and this will control the size of the chunks that you get. So closer together, you're going to get smaller pieces, of course. Okay, and once you have it scored, you just turn it inside out like so, and you're going to cut pieces off just as you see them. So it's very simple. And just put them right into a bowl or whatever dish that you want to. And if you think these are too big, then you can just cut them, go over them again with your chef's knife. So nice and easy. This also looks kind of cool, and it looks pretty on a fruit platter. You can make these a little bigger if you wanted. So now we still have the pit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up the pit, and I'm just going to slice away the skin, trim it up a little bit, and just cut away as much as I can on this. It's not going to be fancy, and it might not be tremendously uniform, so I just cut away and then just chop it up, just so you don't waste it. Mango is a member of the poison ivy family, so if you find that when you're eating a mango you get a little bit of an allergic sensation, that could be why. So let's talk a little bit about eggs. We all keep eggs in our kitchen. We do so many things with eggs, whether it's a scrambled egg or whether it's a batch of cookies or a cake, but we all need to know how to crack an egg. So we're going to take our egg and crack it on a flat surface, so that not on the side of the bowl. That way you don't push the shell into the egg. So crack it on a flat surface, and then you pry it apart with your fingers. And it's easy enough to separate it with shells. So nice and easy. Let's do that one more time. Okay, and once I pry that apart, if I drop my egg just like that, you use the shell to remove it from the whites. When you're working with egg whites, what you want to make sure is that you don't get any yolk in there. And also, if you're using egg whites and you want to beat them or whip them, you want to make sure they're room temperature. So for baking, your standard egg size is a large egg unless the recipe tells you otherwise. If you just read a recipe that says 1 egg, it means 1 large egg. That's the universal size that's used in baking. If it says 1 small egg or medium egg, you can have a difference in your end result because the volume is different. So crack your eggs on a flat surface, separate them using the shells. If you get a little yolk in the white, pull it out with the shell, and use your eggs at room temperature when you're baking. Let's go on to toasting nuts. So I have a saute pan here, a non-stick skillet, and what we're going to do is we're going to heat this up. And we don't need to put anything in the pan except the nuts. So I have some pinoli nuts or pine nuts, and I want them in a single layer in the pan. I'm going to heat the pan. This is not something you want to walk away from. You want to make sure that when you're toasting your nuts, you keep your eye on it, because once they start to brown, they go from browned to burned very quickly. So what you want to make sure you do is pour them into a bowl, and that way they'll be that perfect golden brown that you've achieved. You can also toast your nuts on a pan like this and put them in the oven. I prefer doing it on top of the stove in a saute pan because I can keep my eye on the nuts this way. If I put them in the oven, I think I have more of a risk of letting them brown too much or forgetting that I'm toasting nuts. So if I do it this way, I always know what's going on. So I have a rubber spatula. These are great. It's a silicone spatula. They clean very well, and they withstand up to about 550 degrees heat. So a silicone spatula is a great thing to have in the kitchen, and they also can go in the dishwasher. While we're waiting for our nuts to toast, I have a meat thermometer here. This is an extra large one. It's easier to read. So what I use my meat thermometer for is when I'm testing the temperature of water to use for pizza dough or any yeast bread, I want the water to be between 110 and 120 degrees. I really think it's hard to get it to the right temperature without measuring it. The other thing I use this for, of course, is meat. So when I've roasted something and I want it rare, I insert this into the middle of the roast, not to the bone, because the bone will be hotter, but to the center, to the coolest part of the roast. And then I just take a look. This is instant read. You'll get a reading very quickly. So you want rare is about 125, medium's about 145. poultry, we want to about 160, 165, keeping in mind that there's always residual cooking time. So once you take something out of the oven, if you don't want it to be overdone, you want to allow for that residual cooking time of about maybe 5 to 7 degrees while it's resting. When you're roasting a turkey or a chicken, you do want to allow for resting. So when you take that turkey or chicken out of the oven, you want to make sure that you let it sit before you start to slice it. For my purposes, toasted pinoli nuts to throw in my salad or any other dish that calls for toasted nuts, they're done. So I'm going to take those out of my saute pan, put them into a bowl so they don't continue to cook. Okay. And that's it. That's how quick and easy it is to toast your nuts. One of my very favorite things to keep in my kitchen is parchment paper. Parchment paper is so useful because I can use it on a baking sheet for cookies. And what you do is you just take a piece of parchment paper, put it on your baking sheet, and it keeps the sheet clean. But what I really like about it is it alleviates the need for any excess in oil or butter in the pan to keep things from sticking. So you use a sheet of parchment paper, it's non-stick, and it also keeps things clean. The other thing parchment paper is great for is you can use it to wrap up cookie dough and stick it in your refrigerator. You can cut a circle out and put it in your cake pan. What you can also do with parchment paper is you can put a chicken breast in it, fold over the parchment paper, and when you're pounding your chicken breast, you keep the counter cleaner, and it also helps you from really tearing up your chicken breast. So parchment paper is just so great to have in your kitchen. I use it anytime I put anything on a cookie sheet, a baking sheet, a roasting pan. It just alleviates things from sticking. The other thing that I'd like to talk about is making salad dressing, because bottled salad dressings are just sometimes ho-hum. So it's really easy to make your own vinaigrette. What you need is a bowl, a whisk, oil, vinegar, salt, and pepper. So let's get those things. I have a bowl, a whisk, and whisking your salad dressing together as opposed to shaking it will hold it together longer. I have a balsamic vinegar and an extra virgin olive oil. So really easy. We need our salt again and some pepper. So I'm going to start out with a couple of pinches of salt. I usually make enough salad dressing for a couple of days. A few grinds of fresh black pepper. You don't have to refrigerate this. In fact, if you do refrigerate it, what will happen is the olive oil will get a little thick and you'll have to bring it to room temperature anyway. You always start with your acid. Acid could be vinegar, could be any kind of fruit juice, lemon juice. Lemon juice and olive oil makes a great salad dressing as well. So a little bit of balsamic vinegar. And I usually make my salad dressing about 1 to 2 because I use sweeter vinegars. I like the balsamic vinegar. When you're shopping for balsamic vinegar, you want to make sure that it's from Modena in Italy, and you want to make sure that there's no additives. Sometimes you'll pick up a bottle of vinegar in the store, and if you read the ingredients, it can have additives in it to make it sweet, but you don't want that. You just want strictly balsamic vinegar. So first the vinegar, salt and pepper, and then I'm going to start whisking, and I'm going to start adding some extra virgin olive oil, about 2 times as much oil as vinegar. Keep whisking, and when you have your proportions right, just keep whisking until the whole thing comes together. This is your base. And then what you can do is you can add fresh herbs, you could add roasted garlic that you've pureed, you could add chopped garlic, anything that you want. But I usually put everything in my salad bowl and then I just add my vinaigrette. So that's how easy it is to make your own homemade salad dressing, and it takes you away from having to buy any salad dressings. So let's talk a little bit about citrus. Many recipes will call for either zest or juice of lemons, limes, or oranges. So what we want to do is get our lemons and limes at room temperature, and that way you'll get the most juice. But what I'm going to do first is I'm going to zest this lime. So we have tools that are really good for zesting. This will give you a fine zest. These are also great for grating cheese. So you can see you have different thicknesses and different size openings. So for zesting, all you have to do is I'm taking a piece of parchment paper and I'm taking my lime and just rub it right over my zester. This is actually called a zester grater. And it gives you this really, really fine, really beautiful zest. And then since I have it on the parchment paper, it's easy enough to pick it up and put it into a little bowl if I need to put it into one of my little prep bowls. Zesting's done. And then I can just pick up my parchment paper and I could pour this into a prep bowl. And that makes it a little bit easier for me to measure this. So now that's ready to be measured, or that looks about a teaspoon to me. The other thing that we want to do for juicing is we're going to take that room temperature lemon, lime, or orange, roll it on your kitchen counter with your palm of your hand, okay, and it'll just loosen up the juices a little bit. And I'm going to take a serrated knife to cut this in half. And I also want to grab a strainer. Since I have a small bowl, I'll use my small strainer, and I need a fork. So what I'm going to do is cut my lemon in half, and then so that I don't get seeds in my lemon juice, I use the strainer. And you take your fork and you stick the fork in the center of the lemon, and you just twist the lemon right around the fork. You can buy a juicer, but if you don't want to have every gadget known to man, this is a really acceptable and really great way. I also feel that I get more juice when I do it this way. Okay, so now we have fresh lemon juice. Never buy those plastic lemons. You're gonna get that plasticky flavor. And then I just take my seeds and toss them away. So nice lemon juice. Let me clean up, be right back. Before we say goodbye, I just wanna add a couple of helpful tools to your kitchen. So I have a flat meat pounder here. This is great for pounding chicken breast, making something very even. You can also use this to chop nuts. If you just need a couple of nuts chopped for a recipe, you put them in a Ziploc bag, put them on your kitchen counter, and give it a few whacks with your meat pounder. You can also peel and chop garlic with this. So you put your garlic on a cutting board, and instead of using your chef's knife, as we did a little earlier, you can use your meat pounder, and you'll get a chopped garlic. It won't be finely minced, but it'll be chopped enough to throw into a soup or a sauce, and the skin will come off really easily. Something else that's great to have is an ice cream scooper with a spring action. If you're making meatballs and you don't like to get your hands all messy, you can use this to form your meatballs, and this is a great way to scoop out cookies when you're working with kids. A pizza wheel is really important. It's great for slicing pizza, but it's also great for chopping herbs. You can put your herbs on a cutting board and roll this over your herb. Also, if you do work at all with any kind of pastry and you want to make interesting shapes, this is a great way to make shapes out of your pastry dough. Tongs are a really great kitchen tool. They're an extension of your hand and something you definitely want to have in different sizes. What's really wonderful about tongs is they don't pierce the meat or the protein. So if you want your steak to stay juicy, your pork tenderloin, your chicken breast, you use your tongs to turn it, and you won't pierce it with a fork, and you won't lose all of your juices. A bench scraper is also wonderful, because if I'm making pastry dough or pizza dough and my kitchen counter gets messy, I can just simply scrape it up and wash this, and it makes my counter a lot easier to clean up. A serrated knife, this is also known as a trimmer because of the size. So if I'm cutting something that's really soft, mozzarella cheese, tomatoes, you want to use a serrated knife. A straight blade would crush this tomato that's very, very ripe. So your serrated knife is much better for slicing a tomato. Mushrooms, eggs, strawberries, they're all great if you put them in an egg slicer. They will slice nice and evenly and very quickly in your egg slicer. I like to keep this little container of spoons and forks on my stove. When I'm tasting food, they're very handy. I take one taste with each spoon so that I'm not returning the spoon to the pot, and then I just throw these right into the kitchen sink. I'm Barbara Seelig-Brown. I hope that you've enjoyed these tips and tricks. I hope you find them helpful, and I'll look forward to seeing you on Stress-Free Cooking soon.
Funding for Stress-Free Cooking is brought to you by Cutco. Cutco has been making high-quality products in Olean, New York since 1949. Cutco's straight-edge blades are durable, flexible, and hold a razor-sharp edge. And by Melissa's. Established in 1984, Melissa's World Variety Produce is currently the largest distributor of specialty produce in the United States. You could depend on Melissa's for delivering great quality products in fruits and vegetables.
Enjoy Barbara Seelig-Brown's cookbook as she shows you how to make stress-free dishes in the comfort of your own home. Offer made by Stress-Free Cooking for $19.95.